Hi, I'm ED-SKaR, and this is the Gaunt's Ghosts book series. And there's a specific sequence that I always think of as one of the best. It is the ending of the second book, Ghostmaker, published 20 years ago, but I shan't spoil it, well, not completely at least. There's aspects from throughout the book coming together, including a psychic storm, a regimental feud, a giant who treats an autocannon like a submachine gun, and an inquisitor. But relevant to this video is a psychic ability, a spell as it were, that a certain character uses to affect the minds of the Imperial forces. Usually in the 40k universe that would end extremely poorly for the Imperials involved, but in this case, not so much. To spoil it as little as I possibly can and only explain what's important to this video, there is a small Eldar force up to Eldar things. And the psychic ability their warlock had wrought tricked the Imperials into joining their cause by believing it was their cause. For Tanith, their cause is Tanith, their homeworld. They believe they are fighting to protect their world. And they see the Eldar as fellow Tanith. Slightly tall with weird coloured hair, but Tanith nonetheless. I have been painting a Tanith army, and not only that, I've been painting some unorthodox models to boot. Starting with my ghostly Gaunt's ghosts, there's a Volpone and a Volpony, there's a big one, and hopefully soon a small one as well. Well, as for weird models for my Tanith, it makes perfect sense to paint an Eldar model to represent the sequence from the end of Ghostmaker. But where do I get some Eldar from? Well, I could float around on eBay for a bit, Facebook Marketplace, but maybe my answer is a little closer to home. So I checked my pile of opportunity to see if I have any elves that I could convert. As a stroke of luck, not only do I have some elves, but I actually do have some Eldar. 3 Eldar scouts, and better than anything I possibly could have hoped for, they have cloaks on already. And here they are. Looking closer, they're not actually wearing cloaks, but rather greatcoats with hoods. But then they're not actually Tanith either, so that's fine. They're also sporting my first ever attempt at acrylic inks, trying to make a gradient through purple. Well, they're metal models, so are an excellent choice to use as practice models because they can be stripped really easily with acetone in all of 10 seconds. Now you'll notice that I specifically took off the plastic bases to protect them from the acetone. Well, yeah, that happened. Well, I saved the bases somehow and I fixed them up with some rocks and texture, primed and set about painting. I knew that the coats would have the Tanith camouflage scheme overall so that they fit in with the rest of my Tanith army. The whole point of painting these models is to make them disappear amongst the ghosts. But they aren't ghosts, and so I thought I should pick out the armour and the pouches and the boots with a very, very not Tanith colour. So rather than copying the black uniform of the Tanith, I went with a very, very old school bright blue for these Eldar. The old school colouring fits the era when the book was released, and so I'll claim that as my excuse. Otherwise, the painting of these models was not so special. The blue armour and other blue areas got some pale highlights with a tiny subtle scattering of black panel lining. I reread the sequences to make sure, and I didn't spot any mentions of the colour of the armour. However, there is very specific mention of their hair colour, that being white, which some of the Tanith characters realise as a very strange thing, as everyone born on the planet of Tanith have very dark hair, usually black. White hair is a very odd one to paint, so I tried using a very light pale blue as my base layer and then highlighting up into white to have that effect. And of course, a red stripe also mentioned in the books. Much of the remaining details got brown, the weapon stocks mostly, but I also introduced some orange on all of the very smooth gemstones that the Eldar wear, to add some contrast to the models. I also picked out this power sword in the same basic orange, and lit it up with some very subtle yellow highlights. After that is my camo pattern, consisting of many spots of various colours, just so that the models fit with the rest of my Tanith army. And with the painting done, I need to work out exactly how to do that, how to play them in the army. One option would be to run them as an Eldar scout unit, finding the appropriate modern rules for these old models, and add them in as a specialist, kind of pseudo-allied unit. Whilst fun from a very off-the-wall and friendly narrative game, that really screws with force organisation of an Imperial Guard army. Better to include these models in an Imperial Guard squad, as the characters did mix in the firefight they were involved with. But do I use the Eldar stats, or use the models as effectively proxies for Imperial Guard? The odd situation here where the proxy is more expensive than what it's proxying as. Well, I'm pretty much set in using them in that way, and the two with rifles will be guardsmen with las guns, and the sword and pistol will be used as a sergeant. Almost certainly these will join in on an infantry squad in that capacity. So with 3 totally Tanith troopers for my Tanith army, I can call this video done. Comment section down below if you have any alternate ways to use these models, and of course you can stop past the description with all of the links to other stuff that I get up to. I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and thank you very much for watching.